The next thing we're going to do is do something about this water pump. We need to get a new seal on it, a new impeller, and all that kind of thing. So one of the first things I'm going to do is take the gasket back out. This incidentally only goes on one way because that's a big fat hole. Sounds like a real insult, but it's just the way it is. So we're going to get this all set up, but before we do that, we're going to take advantage of the access we have. We're going to take a 3/8 drive extension and run it through there. Now, some of you are going to cringe, but just deal with it. This works and it doesn't hurt anything. While we're in here, you can see that that's kind of dark in the middle. When you first get in there and you see that it's all messed up or all cooked looking, see even the back side of it, it's just a little too dark. Just relax. That's part of heating it to put it together, so it's not a big deal. The way we're going to tighten this is clockwise, so this turns the same direction as a water pump. Just the water pump turns a little bit faster. So this spreads the force out over a large surface area so it doesn't damage it. I just like to make sure that it's nice and even so it's not hanging up in the funky place. I would like to stick that over there. I'd rather put pressure on here than somewhere else. And then this one just bites it down on the dowel. And there's no compression gases, it's just like an oil gasket here. So it's not super critical. So what we're doing is we need to get this so that we can tighten this down without having the shaft turn, otherwise they'll just turn and turn. So this is where the water pump lives, and the way that this stacks up is you do the water pump seal part 1, water pump seal part 2, and then so we're just going to get this totally covered in this assembly lube. Again, I've got a link in the description for that. You don't want to do this without this engine assembly lube. It's just so much better to do it this way. So I'm pretty much going to lube the whole thing so that nothing gets stuck. We've now got dissimilar metals because I'm using an aluminum impeller, and you have to take the impeller off to get to the seal, so you don't want that to get stuck by electrolysis. So we've got a socket. This one happens to be a 12.32 millimeter. 6-point won't work. You see the lip makes contact with the socket in such a fashion that we're driving it in real square. This socket also happens to fit in the hole we have. So when we go like this, it fits in there no problem. So we've got these two. We've already lubed that up. And then we just need a BFH, which is doesn't stand for best friend Heather. What we do is we just take this. I'll lube it up a little bit on the beginning side just to help it go in good. Just because if it fights it, it can really deform, and this is a $50 seal. You don't want to mess around, you know. You want it to go in and work properly the first time. So just around the corner, I'm just putting some of that same lube on there. You notice that there's no seal here. The seal is actually the little washer spacer that goes on after. This is just a spring-loaded thing that helps to hold that against the pump. So you just put that in there, line it up as square as you can. And if you can get it to start in by hand, that's great, but don't be surprised if you can't. And we put our socket over the top of it and just tap it in. So this job isn't perfectly easy, but what I'm doing is I've got a couple of extensions like this, and if you go over the CV axle, then that gives you a long drift to push the socket in. And this is a little bit crooked. If you're to take out the stabilizer link, support the vehicle on jack stands obviously, unbolt the top of the shock and then pull that out of the way, then you'd have perfect access to knock that in. That's the best way to go. And then I've got a hammer that's flat on one side and curved on the other. That curve gives you a little better access so that you can hit it this way to get that side. And you can hear how solid that sounds. You'll feel it kind of knock like a nail going in and then bottom out. But you can get all of the top sides from here and then the bottom and left side from the other side. When you're done and you look at it, you should be able to see it really centered there on its own without any flex. You can see it can move, but it should be very much in the center. So here we are looking at it from the back side. This is actually where you put your extensions in your socket, and you have a pretty straight shot, except for with my extension it gets a little too fat against the spring and wants to favor high or low rather than being right in the middle where it should be. As I said before, you can unbolt the top of the shock and lay that out, but this is the spring that's holding the thing up, so you want to support the vehicle first. So once you feel like you've done a good job, you can take a pry bar, screwdriver or something. Be careful of the rubber, but gently put it up onto that copper part that you're driving in, and just push forward and click down. Feel if it drops far or if it's real close. If it feels like it's really close, like the thickness of the copper, then you're done. And you can check it all the way around that way. But again, you can make sure that you're centered on the gap between the two here. This next part's a piece of cake. We've got 3 parts left. The impeller, I'll put a link in the description for this too. You want to do the metal one. You don't want to do the one that disintegrated again. That'd be dumb. So then you take your little, this is the actual seal here. So you take your seal, you've already lubed the inside of it. If you want, you can go with some more. I don't know what this stuff does when it reacts with antifreeze, but I know that seals and bearings and everything else absolutely love it. So we're just going to put this on those ribs on the inside of the seal. This is the business end. This is what actually seals the coolant from getting out the shaft. So we'll put that in first. And the way that it goes, you know, it's got the bumpy side on here. That cues up with the textured lines on this so that it'll turn it. It actually spins around this way. And then the mechanical seal pushes it against this so that it doesn't leak. Knock on wood. If you want to put a little Permatex Right stuff between these two, I wouldn't blame you, and that's what I'm going to do. So what I'm doing with this seal is you got all these lips on there, and so you got to push it on at an angle and lift up and work it in a circle so that you don't rip one of the lips going on. Doesn't that look fine? This is a nylon nut, so if you've had overheating, if your impeller's been disintegrated, you want to replace it with a new nut. I did not cover how to get the old one out, but it's really simple. You just take a small pry bar like you see here, and you just get in there like any other seal and you just pry it out. You can get the middle guts out pretty easy, and then from there you can peel back. Peel back here, 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 and here. By the time you get halfway around, it'll give up and pop out. Just thought I'd throw in there in case somebody's like, yeah, but how do you get it out? Sometimes I'll watch a video and that's me. So this is keyed up, so you got to make sure that you match the keying. Yes, Your Majesty. So anyway, just like that. Be careful with these metal ones because they are sharp. They are not a dull or blunt instrument. They're like precision sharpness. We're going to tighten that on. Now for those of you that just tuned in and don't remember, we've got the crankshaft braced up right up here using a, you know, just whatever. You could tighten it up against a piece of rope in the spark plug hole, or you could pull the starter out and use a pry bar. But you just basically need to brace the crank so that it won't turn, because this goes directly to the crankshaft. So if you don't see a little bit of shaft through the end of the nut, then you haven't gone far enough. Right there, perfect. You can see just a teeny bit sticking through to the end, and it's nice and snug. So we're going to pull up on our bar. We'll pull it out. Yeah, we're just going to pull it up all the way, because the next thing we're going to do is put pistons in it. And of course the next order of business is to put in a new seal. I've already done that. The seal goes with the little rib end sticking out, and the flat side goes against the water pump cover, the housing. It just goes on like that. You've got 2 bolts that are a little bit long. There's this one right here, and then there's another one on the back side that go through both this cover and the other into the engine block. You'll have these bolts here, and like I say, you'll have 2 of them that are long and the rest of them are short. So this one's long and there'll be another one. You can test and see which one's going to be long just by sticking the long ones in the hole and see if they sink in or not. It's really simple. And there, like I say, there's not like 5 different lengths of them like some kind of 1970s Chrysler or something. You can seal this up if you want to. I'm not going to. So you want to make sure that your gasket's in there and that it's seated real well, and then you just go around and tighten these in. When you go to put these in, put them in finger tight until they're all in, and then go in and tighten them down in the opposite pattern, meaning that you go from this side to that side, kind of like you're drawing a star, so that you're all in opposites. That makes it tighten down nice and flat so that you don't have one side that's sticking up more than the other. So the 2 long bolts are this one here and this one at the bottom. You can see that they go all the way in. There's a little bump in the casting there. But you just go through, get everything started by hand, and then once you've got them all started by hand, you kind of snug it down, get it close, and then you tighten it in the star pattern, you know, up, down, you know, go to the opposite with each one as you tighten them down. I didn't mention, but this is just a cap that comes on the water pump seal. What you'll want to do with that is take some side cuts or something, and then very carefully, don't damage the brass part of it or the copper, whatever it is, but you want to make a little cut in that or crack in it on each side, here, here, or in 4 places, and get it off. I got away with doing just one, but you got to get rid of this. This is just to show and hold it while it's being shipped, how to have that little washer that goes in the middle so that you don't mess it up or have it backwards and not seal. And it's nice and even. That's what we're looking for. That's how you install the water pump on a Polaris RZR 800. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe. I got all kinds of other videos coming up. And even if it's not something that you own or that you work on, you'll learn all kinds of things that apply to everything. So tune in. I'd love to have you along. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. Cheers.